and welcome to this week's Maternity and Midwifery Hour. Hello, everybody. It's going to be a really interesting and exciting evening this evening, so I'm really delighted that you've been able to come here. And well, it's the second episode of the fourth series, and every time I say that, I think I can't believe we're already a year through and on our fourth series. But it's my pleasure to be here as the curator of the Maternity Hour and the Maternity and Midwifery Festival, which we had yesterday, and I'm chairing this evening. And I'm delighted to be joined by the two luminaries for crafting and creativity in midwifery, and that is Lindsay Hobbs and Jenny Hall. Here they are on the screen with us, and I'll talk a bit more about what they're going to get up to, and you're going to soon find out what they're going to get up to. But I usually start off with a little moment of the week, so I'm going to put Jenny on the spot first to ask you if you'd share your moment of the week.
Okay, my moment of the week has to be the fact that I was able to see three of my daughters who I have not seen for months, and my son-in-law.
Wonderful.
One of my son-in-laws, and which has to be the moment of the week, because it's just, gosh, you don't realize how much you miss them, to be honest, and to be able to be in the same garden play space with each other and just to hang out is just fantastic, rather than being on this medium. So that is definitely mine.
Fabulous. And that is, I'm sure a lot of people will be kind of experiencing that with you, Jenny. Thank you. That's lovely. How about Lindsay? Can you compete?
I'm not quite sure, but my moment of the week was I've recently started wild swimming. So I went with a friend yesterday down to our local river, just as the sun was setting, and we put our wetsuits on and we got into the very cold water and had a swim with the ducks in the stillness, and it was bliss.
Wow. So is that the first time, Lindsay?
No, we've been a few times, but this was the first time we've been in sunset.
Wow. Well, I'm going to say this is a frightfully trendy thing at the moment to go wild swimming, because they're talking about all the health benefits of getting in that cold water. But I have to say, I don't think I could quite bring myself to it, but it sounds lovely. So you've both got some fantastic moments. Thank you so much. Now, I'm just going to do the little introduction I almost always do before we move on to a little bit of news. So just as though people will know who tune in, but some people may be a wee bit new. These hours came about with the pandemic. So they're sort of bonus of the pandemic, really. And the idea was to make sure that midwives, midwifery students, people who want to become midwives, and other people in the maternity services would have an opportunity to get some continuing profession development and some contact with things that were going on elsewhere in midwifery, and also to be able to share good practice from other units who are experiencing COVID and being quite, actually the subject of today's creativity, and people were being very creative, using technology, using different ways of making sure that maternity care was being delivered to women and babies and families. And it was a really good sharing opportunity, and we've carried on and we will carry on, and it's been a really good way of making sure people have accessible information. And I want to say a big thank you to Netflix, who kind of oversee everything and store all the materials after we've done them. And so for those of you who are doing courses, revalidation, any student midwives, if you need to get any up-to-date information in a very accessible format, Netflix is where you need to go. It's really good. Everything's online and you can access everything. I don't know if Jenny will mention it later, but I know that she edits and looks after it all. So she is the queen of Netflix there for us. Now we're at the point of opening open air pubs and eateries, and we're still keeping our distance. We're still wearing our masks and being safe, washing our hands, and the roadmap is still in place and we're following it steadily. So there are still people catching the COVID, sadly. There's still people in hospital, and the NHS is still busy looking after those people. So we want to send big thanks and big love to everybody who is going through that, and whether they're staff or whether they're patients or family or friends. So big hugs to you all. And also want to say a big thank you and a big hug as well, if I could hug, I would, to the maternity services, because we've carried on providing care to mothers and babies and families, and midwives have done that fantastically, and that's taken quite a lot of energy to do that. So a big thank you to them. And I know also I need to say a big thank you to the vaccination services, because a lot of midwives are working in the vaccination hubs, and it's going so fantastically, and really giving us a sort of way out to a new normal, which is fantastic. And of course, thank you to all key workers and their families. And I ought to say thank you to NHS families as well, because they're all living through this and having to support their people. So big thank you to them as well. Now, moving on to this news, the big news, I think the biggest news, apart from the football issue, and I'm not going to go into that because I don't kind of understand it. I'm not a footballer person, but it seemed a bit of a shame to kind of take people out of the system, but I won't go there. Big news, I think, was the guilty verdict on the policeman who killed George Floyd. And I think everybody breathed a sigh of relief that that was the verdict, because when you see the video, you can't imagine any other verdict at all. And we can hope that that will maybe start some of the healing that needs to go on and maybe change people's views. But I know it's going to take a long time. On to sort of other things within the UK. We've had the new NICE postnatal guidance out well, it was this week, I think the 21st or 20th. That's on your resource sheet. So for those of you who want references from this evening, that's where you need to go, and it's all available on the live stream. Also, there's a uniform consultation from the NHS. Now that it's not the NHS sort of supplies people. And I know a lot of people are very into uniforms, very interested in uniforms. And if you want to have a say, go to the link on the references list and have your say. I know midwives will have something to say about that. And as you know, you probably all know, the Joint Committee for Vaccination and Immunisation has now announced that it'll be offering pregnant women the COVID vaccine in line with the rollout plan for the UK. So that's a little change. There's also, and we've got elections coming the same week, actually, I believe, as International Day of the Midwife. I believe it's the 6th of May. And I know that the RCM has published some blueprints for each of the country's maternity services, and the ones I've seen are the Wales and Scotland. They might do an England one, I'm not sure. So that's all on the resources page. And I think the biggest thing for most midwives, and you might find something this evening that would be useful for this as well, is people are preparing for the International Day of the Midwife on the 5th of May. So I know there's the virtual IDM conference with some fabulous speakers, so look out for that as well, and in your preparations. But I know midwives are very busy with that anyway. So I've gone through that, and I'm beautifully on time, I might say. Pat on the back for me. Now, this week we're looking at creativity in midwifery, and we know that midwives are very creative, and we're looking at things like crafting and quilting and knitting. And really exploring that from the idea, and I know people in the last year have probably adopted different skills because it can be very useful for stress, and it can be very relaxing. People may have had lots of extra time, and that might have been a good use of that time. But there are other things that go on when you're doing knitting and kind of creative things. There is an academic field to this, and you're going to have this shared with you. And some of you may remember, and I have one here, the Knitted Midwives of 2016, which went to the Royal College of Midwives conference, and that was in response to a big call by the RCM, quite rightly, that we were short of midwives. And I think someone identified that maybe we should knit some midwives, because it takes quite a bit. I'm sorry, my midwife seems to be losing a hat. Hats very important for midwives. The idea of knitting midwives came up, and I think we've got Jenny and Lindsay led that, and that was really to illustrate a very political point. I'm not going to take any of their thunder because I know they're going to talk about this. So I'm really so delighted that we have our two special people here this evening. We've got Dr. Jenny Hall. I'm going to do this little intro. She's been creatively educating for nursing and midwifery all of her career, in practice, publication and in education. She's also previously the editor for the Practicing Midwife. She's published widely, and she's got a wide range of research interests, including spirituality, promoting dignity and respect in education, human rights experience of disabled women, as well as the creativity and the reflection within that. She's also a fellow of the Royal College of Midwives and senior fellow of the Higher Education Academy. And I'm introducing Lindsay at the same time because they're going to have a kind of a chat over tea, I believe. So Lindsay is a lecturer in midwifery. She's a nurse and a midwife. She's a strong philosophy of women-centered care and practice mainly in the community within continuity of care models and teams, and latterly with vulnerable women. She's led projects including peer support breastfeeding training, teenage pregnancy, peer support, use of the Audit C in antenatal bookings, neighbourhood public health inequalities and caseload midwifery. Her professional interests include the culture of midwifery regulation, health professional language use, which is that'd be really interesting, and finally, of course, creative textile techniques. So I will say, Lindsay and Jenny, the screen is now yours, and welcome.
Thanks for watching this video from the Maternity and Midwifery Forum. For more expert opinion and analysis, hit the button below to subscribe.